Your story matters, don't let it fade. When everything changed, you were made.
Everything changed when classes were dismissed from the school assembly. The chaos of 800 students and many of their parents leaving the school basketball courts was hectic. I weaved through the crowd to say goodbye to my youngest, who was happy to get in a hug before she went back to class with her friends. But for my oldest, 7 years old and in second grade, her goodbye interaction did not mirror her sister's. Separation anxiety completely took over her. I hugged her goodbye and she cried out in horror, screamed as if she was in pain. She became a version of herself I had never seen before, refusing to move, but equally thrashing about as if in pain and in frustration and in fear. I walked away slowly, watching silently as I tried to move out of her eyesight. Her classmates and her teachers tried to console her, but it seemed as if each attempt only exasperated her upset. Tears began to fall from my own eyes as I watched the counselor have to physically remove her from the situation. I wanted nothing more than to run to my daughter's aid, to shield her, to protect her. I wanted to swoop in, to scoop her up, to take away the fear and the angst that she was experiencing. But I knew in the depth of my soul that was not the answer. That was not going to make things better. See, my background had been in special education. I specialized in behavioral exceptionalities, and far too often I had to use restraint to physically remove children in order to keep themselves and those around them safe. In fact, even with my youngest daughter, who spent her first 4 years battling some medical complexities, my husband and I would have to use my experience to keep her safe from hurting herself from the pain that she was in. Restraint was not new to me. I actually believe in its necessity at times. And although I could see the need for it that morning on the basketball courts, moving from the active participant and decision maker to the emotionally attached observer, having to see someone else come to that conclusion about and with my daughter nearly broke me. It was in that moment that I recognized that the behavior changes my husband and I had witnessed the previous 9 months, the fear, the looping, the rocking, the flapping, the face scrunching, they were not just little, albeit sometimes cute, quirks of hers. But instead, they seemed to be far more significant, true behavioral needs, and they were going to take way more effort than I think we ever realized. It was in the weeks that followed that I came to the conclusion that my 12 plus years experience within the special needs community was not just a gift that God had blessed me with, but it was actually to prepare my heart and my home to be able to manage and support the needs of our own daughter. Full disclosure, the incident on the basketball courts took place in November 2019. And while I immediately began to look for resources to try to find answers and therapies, that was all brought to a halt just 4 months later due to the COVID-19 pandemic. In the year and a half that followed, truth be told, my daughter lived her best life. She stayed home from school and all activities for 17 months, which meant she got to be near, quite literally within feet, of her mom and dad 24/7. We were thrilled to what felt like have our daughter back, thrilled to see her happy again, thrilled to see her smiling again. She got to be creative again, play with her sister again, and find joy in her days again. Now, don't get me wrong. Being cooped up wasn't all rainbows and unicorns. And within that time frame, our family suffered a lot of loss. 7 family members to be exact. But it was the ability to see my daughter, both my daughters for that matter, thriving again throughout it all that felt magical. As our family came from under our rock in 2021, what quickly became aware that the thriving my daughter had experienced was simply a masking. A time when all her needs were being masked by our circumstances. And while it felt like a huge win in the moment, a time that allowed us to live without abandon and to create some incredibly core memories, I can't lie. It became a hard pill to swallow to know that we had actually just wasted over a year and a half, wasted the ability to find answers, wasted the ability to get her help. Our daughter's fear and irrational behaviors quickly made a resurgence, one that interfered with her ability to function in more situations than not. One minute, we would have a happy-go-lucky 9-year-old. The next, she would be rolling around the floor, rolling around, rocking, flapping, wanting nothing to do with anyone or anything. We didn't know what caused these episodes, why they were happening. And oftentimes, most times, neither did she. Everything seemed to trigger her. Everything seemed to scare her. Everything and everyone seemed to upset her. Everything she did and everything she said was predicated on those around her, and it wreaked havoc on her mind. The thoughts that she would have about herself, the words that she would speak over herself in those moments, they were words that no mother would stand to allow anyone to speak about their baby girl. And to hear it coming from that baby girl herself was gut-wrenching. It was devastating to witness. It was exhausting to process. Her decisions and her behavior were not her own. They were outside of her control, outside of who she is at her core, outside of anything we could have imagined. She was a puppet, and we were on a desperate quest to find the puppeteer. We met with therapists and doctors, with teachers and school counselors. We had multiple assessments and sat through dozens of result appointments, many of which seemed to contradict the one before it. How are we supposed to know right from wrong? How are we supposed to know what to do or where to go next? We were spending more money than we were bringing in, but we were more than willing to do it if it got us answers. As much as we were doing and going from one appointment to the next, it was the waiting. The waiting for that aha moment, the waiting for that final answer, that was most excruciating. It brought an uncertainty like I had never experienced. Uncertain about the version of my daughter that we would experience from day to day. Uncertain about what to do or where to go next. Uncertain about if the decisions we were making were truly in her best interest. That's all a mother wants to do, right? Uncertain of my role as her mother because such. Doctors questioned me, told me I must be over-exaggerating because they just can't imagine that behavior coming from that sweet little girl. And they would dismiss me completely. It felt as if I had no one that believed us, no one to help, no guidance, no support. I was always left with zero answers, and I was getting to the point where I didn't even know what questions to ask anymore. All I wanted to do was take it all away. All I wanted to do was make things better for her. But instead, it felt like all I was doing was making everything infinitely worse. I cried daily. I felt so incredibly alone. I felt lost. I felt guilt. I was so confused and even more overwhelmed. As a mom, I felt like I should be able to do more, to find answers, to make it go away. The guilt turned to shame. The feeling of isolation and the feeling of making things worse for my daughter, they led to my own emotional breakdown. One where I thought that taking my own life, removing me from the situation, was the only way that my daughter would get better. I thought that I needed to get out of the way so that they, the rest of my family, could find the way towards her healing. Thankfully, I was wrong. God interfered. In what I now see as a full circle moment, my daughter's needs prevented her from making it to school. Her needs, the ones that I was fighting for daily, the ones which led me to this place of hopelessness to begin with. Yeah, those needs were the needs that saved my life. Plan in hand, I was ready to move forward from removing myself from this side of heaven. But it was my daughter's disability that stopped me that morning. God had other plans. He has bigger plans for my daughter, for our family, for me. Over the next 3 years, which truth be told is synonymous for the last 3 years, we continued to spend hours upon hours trying to find answers. But those answers don't come easy, and trial and error was, often still is, very, very real. As diagnoses started to feel right, And as conversations seemed as if they were finally making some sense, any glimmer of hope that we had was quickly buried by more hurdles or hoops that we had to jump through. The process continued to what felt like throw us down an everlasting black hole with "This is the song that never ends" just playing in the background. You're welcome for getting that stuck in your head for the next few days. New tests, new meds, new behavior therapy, then more new tests, more new meds, more new behavior therapy, appointment after appointment, blood tests after blood tests, medication after medication, scan after scan. Tears, fighting, screaming, meltdowns from my daughter, from me. Sprinkled within it all, though, were days that made us hold our breath. Days we didn't want to see blow away. Days that brought giggles, moments full of joy. Days that would bring a sense of calm. However, it often seemed like it was merely a calm before yet another storm. Until it wasn't. Because as violent as storms can get, they almost always bring with them rain. And no matter what month those showers fall, flowers almost surely bloom after. We finally found doctors who seemed to care, doctors who would listen, doctors who wanted to hear our entire story and learn more about us so that they could be well informed. Answers started to fall into place. Treatment protocols started to make a positive impact on my daughter. And then I found myself now looking eagerly for resources to continue to help. We felt like we were finally uncovering root causes and triggers, successful coping strategies. Our new normal was setting in. And as excited as I was equally terrified. Terrified because all the time and effort that had brought us to that point, finally, they could be taken away in an instant. What would happen if something happened to my husband and I? Who would take care of my girls? Would they know what to do or how to handle all of the needs of my daughter? I barely knew what to do. Would the legacy that my husband and I were working so hard for, physically, financially, and emotionally, would those be safeguarded? Would our daughters be protected? Soon after, I was introduced to a special needs planner who educated me on things I didn't even realize I didn't know, things I didn't know I needed to know. I couldn't help but think, if I had been a part of the special needs community for over 15 years now, as an educator, a trainer, a coach, serving in ministry, and now navigating the needs of our new normal, if I was just coming across this information now, how were families whose loved ones have great needs far greater than my daughter's, who are merely just trying to keep their head above water every single day, how were they ever going to come across this information? How were they ever going to create a plan that was going to give them peace of mind? And so everything changed again. It was in that when moment that it became a mission of mine to educate, envision with, and empower families who are caring for loved ones with special needs. Thinking back on my darkest days, my most confusing days, my loneliest days, I am so grateful to be on the other side. Ish, because let's be honest, there will always be more. More to research, more to know, more to talk about, more to advocate for. And I want families to know you are not alone. You are not alone. I want families to know that they can reach out. I want families to know that you can ask all the questions. I want families to know that you do know best. Do not give up. You were made for this. And I am always here, always your special needs ally. Thank you.
Your story